What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Pick Swap Media channel. I'm here. We're doing a little something different today. Me and Ryan teaming up to talk some NFL content, dive into some betting stuff, and start that world. So before we get fully into it, Ryan, how are we doing today?
Pretty good. Excited. A lot of teams are starting to report to training camp. By this time next week, every team will be at training camp. So football season right around the corner. I think the first preseason game is a little under 3 weeks away. So exciting times coming up. My favorite time of year.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And one of the beauties of football season and sports in general is kind of the memorabilia that comes with it. And when you get that memorabilia, you got to find a place to display it, right? And you know where
Mm-hmm.
you got to go for that is sportsdisplays.com. So you guys make sure to check out the link in our description for Sports Displays. They got an innovative new product to help hang your jerseys in an affordable fashion. So make sure to click the link, use promo code PICKSWAP at checkout. It's a great way to support the channel and get some awesome stuff. So now let's dive right into it. Ryan, talk us through what we're going to be doing today, and let's get going.
All right, so I went over to VegasInsider.com. They have a list of over-unders for every team's win total in the NFL this year. So it's kind of like a baseline of how we think these teams might do. I picked 10 teams who I thought are interesting talking points and kind of some teams I've seen ranked really high, some teams I've seen ranked really low, and some are in between. So I got a little bit of everything here. I got 10 teams on this list, and we're going to be going through predicting their over or under their win total according to VegasInsider.com. So being the Philadelphia kids that we are, we'll start off with the Eagles. Over under 8.5 wins. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm taking the over. I believe in this Eagles team, and I don't think they're the team of destiny or the all-star team or whatever kind of the whispers floating around camp are. But I do really like the way they're building. I think that they're moving in the right direction. The A.J. Brown thing, I think, is a bigger deal than it even has been given credit for in terms of revitalizing this offense and putting this into a win-now team. This is obviously the Jalen Hurts prove-it year, and we're going to – a lot rides on what exactly he can bring to the table. But I think 9 wins is an attainable goal for this team.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely going with the over as well, and I don't really think that's biased. I think if you look at this team on paper, they're a top 10 roster in the NFL. I think anywhere between 10 and 13 wins is feasible for them. I have them winning 12. We know throughout Philadelphia, the only thing that's been talked about this entire offseason in terms of the Eagles is Jalen Hurts and whether or not he can be the guy going forward. So it's an if. It's just going to continue to be an if until September 11th. So if he is a little bit better than last season where they did find a way to win 9 games and make the playoffs, there's no reason this team shouldn't find their way into double digits. Lots of big name additions, like you said, A.J. Brown, Jordan Davis, Hassan Reddick, James Bradbury. The defense is a lot better, and I think the offensive line is still a top 5, maybe even the top overall group in the league. When you have a really good offensive and defensive line, you're going to be competitive no matter what. So I'm excited to watch this team. A playoff win should be the expectation, competing for that division title. But I think they get 12 wins this year and definitely over that 8.5 number.
Yeah, definitely. And when we talk about the Jalen Hurts thing, I feel like there's such perception about like he needs to turn into like Tom Brady all of a sudden. It's like the steps forward don't have to be that notable for this team to continue to progress. Like if he just improves a little bit on the arm strength, on the reads, make kind of the right moves along the edges of his game, like he doesn't need to drastically change everything. Like just a couple steps in the right direction, and this is a winning football team. And like they have a lot of positive to build off from last year. This isn't like I feel like the notion is that like he needs to turn everything around, and I just really feel like that's not the case.
Yeah, I think if he's like comparable to what Dak is for Dallas and with what he has around him and the offensive line and the improved defense, there's no reason the team shouldn't be a division title winner this year and be one of the top seeds in NFC. Like you said, he doesn't need to be like one of those top 5 guys, but if he's in that 8 to 10 range with all the good pieces around him, like you look at Matt Stafford, you can't really say I think that Matt Stafford's a top 5 quarterback, but you can definitely make an argument that between 6 and 10 he's in there. And look at them, they won the Super Bowl last year. So you need at least a top 10 guy, I think, to consistently be a good team. And I think Hurts definitely has the potential to do that. He just needs to continue to grow his game as a passer. So we'll see if he's able to do that. But speaking of a guy who did really grow his game last year, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, their over-under sits at 11.5. They're currently the Super Bowl favorite as well. What are your thoughts on that number for them?
Yeah, I think I'm still taking the over with it. I think that not that it's their Super Bowl to lose because it's obviously such open competition, but I think they're in a great spot to continue to grow, both in his growth and with the team. And I think that they're going to be firmly in the contending conversation all year. I think Josh Allen, he's awesome. Like there's so much shine to all these guys, the Lamar Jacksons, the Pat Mahomes, that Josh Allen sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. Now, granted, he gets his credit for sure, but I really do think he's up there in the best quarterback in the league conversation. And I think he's bringing the Bills right along with him. So I think they're going to end with one of the top records in the NFL this season.
Yeah, so 11.5. I'm taking the over there as well. I have marked up on their schedule right now as 13 wins. I love them this year. I think year after year they've been just continuing to improve that roster, and Josh Allen's continued to improve with it. So I feel like this year kind of is that year that get over the hump. They haven't made it out of the divisional round yet with him, but like I said, they're Super Bowl favorites. I'm intrigued to see though they open up the season on the road at the Rams. If they lose that game, their odds, I bet, for the Super Bowl, they'll drop to like the third or fourth, and you could probably get a pretty good number on that. So I wouldn't take them as a Super Bowl bet right now, but wait to see after week one. If they drop that game, that number might drop, and you could get a nice little payout by the season end. So I think Josh Allen, though, is going to be on a mission. He played that great game in Kansas City last year in the playoffs, and they still got ousted. I love the addition of James Cook, the rookie running back in the backfield there. Brother of Dalvin Cook, the development of Gabriel Davis. We saw that great playoff game he had. And then you go out and add Von Miller. The team was also the best overall, like statistically, defense last year in the NFL. So they have all the pieces to be the 1 seed. They're the favorites for the reason. And I think they also benefit from playing in one of the weaker divisions in the NFL. You look at the AFC West, like with the Raiders, Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos, all those teams are playoff caliber and can make a deep playoff run. Then you look at the AFC East, outside of the Bills, can't really picture a team making the playoffs out of that group. Maybe the Dolphins, potentially Jets or Patriots if some things go right, but I love the Bills this year. I think that they have a real good shot at the Super Bowl. Definitely hammering that 11.5 number.
Yeah, totally agree. They have everything. It's a complete team. And Josh Allen, like I said, like he's a big time performer for the big time moments. So I loved what I saw in the playoffs. I'm excited to see what this team can fully do, putting the pieces together. And I think that like you said about the Rams, if they lose that game, it's a big dip. But if they win that game, like it's kind of like the runway is clear for them to be the favorites all year. So I'd be excited if that's the route it goes as well.
All right, so now we go to one of the teams with one of the lower numbers, and this is a team I'm really interested to see this year. I think they had a nice offseason. They had, I think, 2 nice off seasons in a row, and this is the Detroit Lions. Their over under is 6.5. What do you like with that one?
Yeah, I also like the over for that too. And their record was obviously extremely poor last year, but they were in just about every single game, and they seemed like the most snake bit team in football in terms of like losing on a last second field goal or just a bad break that goes their way. So I like what they're building there. I think they got a lot of nice pieces they're putting together. I still don't think Jared Goff is that guy, but I do like the Lions as a whole, and I think they'll at least be like a mediocre team this year.
Yeah, so this is one that if I was betting on it, I would probably stay away from because I have the under here, but I have them winning exactly 6 games. This is a team where, like you said, they were in a lot of games last year. So if things go a few bounces a different way, potentially this year they could go over. But like you said, Jared Goff still gives me some worry. I really like the addition of Jameson Williams, but we don't know when he'll be on the field. That's a big like kind of missing piece for that offense as well. But like I said, I think they're one of the more interesting teams going into the year. I thought 6.5 was a bit high. I thought they would have been more like a 4.5 or 5.5. But I think they're going to improve from last year's 3-win campaign. Really good on the offensive line. The defensive line getting better as well, getting Hutchinson. Like I said, with the Eagles, if you're good in the trenches, you're going to be competitive. Just Jared Goff, if he takes care of the ball, I think the Lions will beat in a lot of games. But it's to be decided if he can go out there and, kind of finish the deal for them. So I'm going to take the under there, but that's one I would kind of like stay away from if I was a betting man.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's one of my more confident picks across the NFL teams, but I do think the Lions are a better team than they were given credit last year because of the 3 wins, obviously. So I think they're building something and getting there. Jared Goff is obviously the question mark.
Mm-hmm. All right, now we'll go to a team in the AFC who's kind of similar to the Lions, and it's the Jets. They come in at 5.5 for their over-under. What are your thoughts on that one?
I'm probably going under here, and there's something about the Jets that just seems like they can never get it right. And I don't feel like there's nothing there that's really changing my mind this year. And there's moments that excite. I mean, we see the Zach Wilson storylines, which shout out to him for having the dog in him, I guess. But I just can't see this team fully putting the pieces together just yet. And I think that there's still a work in progress and moving in the right direction.
So I actually like the over here. I think the Jets could be one of the surprise teams. My one roommate, Joe, is a lifelong Jets fan, and he would hate me for saying this because he says nothing good ever happens to the Jets, where in the 4 years that I've known him, nothing really has good happened. But I think they've had good drafts after good drafts after good drafts like the past 3 years. I think it's finally time that we see some of that talent come together and form a pretty formidable team this year. If all goes well, they could potentially compete for that 7 seed in the AFC. If all goes well, if everything breaks right, I think. I have them winning 7 games right now. But it really is on the shoulders of Zach Wilson, I think, in the development of him. And also to see if Robert Saleh improves from that year one and learns from some of the coaching mistakes that he made. But like I said, really good draft the past few years, adding talent at all levels on both sides of the ball. Let's see what Wilson and company can do. But I mean, we know coming into the 2017 season, no one was looking at the Eagles as a potential, playoff team, not let alone Super Bowl team. They were coming off like a 4-win or a 7-win season. If the Eagles could do it back then, I think this team with a second-year quarterback, a second-year head coach, a mix of like veteran and young talent, they could surprise some people if all things shake out well. But like we were saying earlier, it is the Jets, so never really be too confident in that.
Yeah, and I do agree. I think the defense is better than they get credit. Zach Wilson, I'm still not sold on as the franchise quarterback, and even as the quarterback just for this year specifically. That's the biggest question mark with like just about every team, but Zach Wilson specifically, I'm a little bit hesitant on.
Yeah, if you kind of notice, every team we've talked about, we've really left it all up to the quarterback. Eagles with Hurts, Bills getting carried because of Allen, Jared Goff being the reason the Lions don't do as well, Zach Wilson being the question mark in New York. It's really all about the quarterback and whether or not they produce at the end of the day. Our next team is the Bengals, who definitely had a guy emerge last year as a star player in Joe Burrow at the quarterback position. Their over-under is set at 9.5. What are your thoughts on that one?
I lean over on it. I wouldn't say I'm completely confident. I think they'll take a little bit of a step back from last year. I think there might be a little bit of a come down to earth moment, but I love Joe Burrow. I love what they're building. Jamar Chase is awesome. I think they have a really good core for obviously the long term, and that they're building in definitely the right direction. But I do think that there's going to be a little bit of a come down to earth moment after the awesome year last year.
Yeah, that's the same notion that I've been going with all season. I have them going under as well. I have them winning 9 games, so kind of hovering right around that 9.5 mark. But like you were saying, for some reason, I think they just kind of take a step back this year. I think last year they were kind of like a year ahead of schedule, and they might be like a little too amped up now, I think, and just think that they're not really have that like dog in them like we were talking about earlier where, all right, no one's really counting on us. Let's go prove them wrong. Now they're like up there. They're expected to be up there. We'll see if they can resemble that same attitude. But we see teams time and time again reach the Super Bowl, and you think they'll be right back in it. And it's hard to sustain that success in the NFL. You look at the Eagles, got there one year, haven't been back since. Falcons the 1 year, haven't been close since. 49ers have been teetering, but still haven't got back. It's so hard to be good consistently in the NFL. That's really what the most amazing part about the Patriots is all these years, how they just continue to be there and be there and be there. And I think the Bengals, as of right now, don't have the makings of that team to get back there. I'm right there with you. I think they take a step back this year. I got them going under that 9.5.
Yeah, there's always somebody right up next. There's always somebody on your hair, somebody looking in. As a franchise, you have to constantly be on the focus of improving the margins, finding ways to get better, even when you do have that kind of success. And not that the Bengals didn't make some movement this offseason, but I think they were fairly content in like letting their core develop, which I think that they need to do a little bit more. And that, like we kind of said, it's just going to be a little bit of a back to reality check for them.
Yes, that they're a team that I'm really interested to see how it all pans out for them this year. Another team with a big-time potential quarterback is the Jacksonville Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence. They're over-under set at 6.5. What are your thoughts on that one?
I'm split on this one. Love Doug Peterson. Love ETN. There's a lot I like about the Jaguars. I still think they're in the developmental process. I think I'm going over, though. I think they can win at least 7 games. I don't know. It's tough. I'm very split on this one, actually. Trevor Lawrence, I thought he looked worse last year than I expected. Obviously, like he had such a high bar of expectation coming to the NFL, probably one of the highest for a rookie quarterback ever because of the pedigree that he came with, and obviously all the high school and college success leading into it. But I think they're going to start to put it together this year. I think they're going to be pretty close to that like 7-game mark, though.
Yes, I have them going under. I haven't close, so I got them winning 5 games. I think they won 2 last year, maybe 3. But if they get to 5 or potentially 6, I still think that's a decent year improvement. Second year of Lawrence, first year with Peterson there. I think Peterson Going there is going to be huge for Lawrence's development, though. This is a team that just needs to continue to add talent. Trayvon Walker, wasn't really the biggest fan of him going number 1 overall. I thought Hutchinson was a safer player, and I thought they were in a position where they kind of needed to just get a guy who they know would be good and just be able to contribute from day one. I think Walker was more swing for the fence type guy. I'm really excited to see ETN, though. Christian Kirk as well. He got paid that big deal. And what they always say in the NFL, like, pay attention to who gets paid the money, because that's really who these teams are going to try and focus on, especially when it comes to stuff like fantasy. So that's the reason why I like Christian Kirk this year with all that money they gave him. I feel like they're going to try and make him like a featured part of that offense. A team that I'm excited to watch just because of Lawrence and just see how he develops a little bit more. But I think they're going to be under, but definitely show more signs and more positives than they did last year. But I got them going under with winning only 5 games.
Mm-hmm. I'll say one of my reasons for optimism with them is I think they have one of the more winnable divisions in the NFL.
No, I agree with you, though, in terms of they have a winnable division. That's kind of why I like the Jets to win some more games as well, because I don't think the Patriots are going to be that good. I think they'll be able to squeak out a win against the Dolphins as well. So in terms of your division and who you get to play, a few times a year, that definitely plays a big factor into what I did for these win projections.
Mm-hmm.
Next team, we talked about the Eagles already. Here's probably their biggest competition for the NFC East this year, and that's the Cowboys. Over under 10.5 wins for them.
I'm going under, and I think they'll be close. I think they'll be right around that mark. I just there's something about the Cowboys that I'm just not confident with. I think it's, once again, I'm circling back to the quarterback, but Dak Prescott, I feel like more and more is being thrown on his shoulders to be kind of the focal point of the offense. They've been so focused on being like a run-heavy team for a couple of years now, and we've seen the offensive line decline in a major way. They're not like the same unit that has struck fear in kind of like a defensive line in the past, and I just kind of feel like there's so many cracks that it's not quite the same. And I didn't get the Amari Cooper trade. I just don't think they're as dangerous as they kind of used to be, and that I don't think they're quite in the mix the way they think they are.
Yeah, when by the time this pod comes out, my fantasy running backs pod will have came out. But I said to avoid Zeke this year because what you were saying about the offensive line, they are not that good anymore. Tyron Smith is missing at least 3 to 4 games a year. Travis Frederick's been gone for about 2 years now. Lyle Collins left this offseason at right tackle to go to the Bengals. I just think that the Cowboys roster got worse this offseason. You lose Amari Cooper, you lose Cedric Wilson, who I think is one of the more underrated players in the entire NFL. Every time he gets an opportunity, he seemed to produce. Michael Gallup's coming back off a torn ACL. Don't know if he'll be ready from day one. This is a team where I feel like they continue to just lose players and didn't really get that much better. They got an offensive lineman out of Tulsa in the first round this year who big like red flags, apparently like literally flags. Like that's what he was like known for in college. He played with like a nasty mean streak, but I think he like led in like personal fouls and like holding. So that's something that you really got to clean up to be a first round caliber pick. So I got them going under as well. I have them winning only 8 games. I think that they could be like a 9 or 10 win team, but 10.5 is a really high number considering the Eagles are only 8.5. And I think the Eagles definitely have a better roster, but it still goes back to the quarterback at the end of the day. Dak is better than Hurts right now. I don't like the Cowboys this year either, though. They also lost Randy Gregory on the defensive side of the ball, one of their better pass rushers. So, and also like last year, Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs played like completely out of their mind. I don't know how sustainable their success will be like at that type of production level. So that's something to definitely monitor throughout the season. Like I don't think Trayvon Diggs is going to have 6 pick six and like 12 interceptions again. Micah Parsons, I could see continue to grow those sack numbers because he's just it seems like to be like a freak of nature, but still, I'm not that high on the Cowboys this year. That could be a biased thing, but usually I'm pretty fair with these type of things. I usually have them like winning like 10 games, but I just don't think this year is that good for them. I think they have a declining roster, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't even think Trayvon Diggs is an above-average corner in the NFL. I think he played out of his mind. He obviously gets the interception numbers, but the amount of times he gets cooked or allows a guy to go by is just not worth the trade-off in my mind. And he's such a boomer bust player. And last year he obviously hit with the boom. The NFL interceptions, had a crazy year statistically, but he also allowed a ridiculous amount of yards against him and does all that. And that is like not a sustainable way to build a defense for me. And I personally would so much rather a corner be like just playing like structured fundamental defense and locking up a guy rather than going for the pick and going for the boomer bust play and end up getting burned a bunch of the time. So I fundamentally haven't had an issue with Trayvon Diggs, and I think that he's going to have a reality check this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look what happened last year in the playoff game against the 49ers. The 49ers, a run-first team, able to just control the clock. They got up early. They were able to run it the whole game. Trayvon Diggs kind of neutralized. I mean, he's not, like you said, a solid corner. He can make you the big play, but when you're playing against these better teams with the better overall quarterbacks and just good coaching staffs, they're going to keep the ball away from him. That's just fundamentally how it's going to work. So I'm interested to see if him and Parsons can continue those crazy statistics they put up last year. This team is probably going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL this year. I think they had the lowest odds or the lowest overall win total for the over-under, and that's the Atlanta Falcons, 4.5. What do you have for them?
Yeah, I'm probably going under on that as well. I agree. I think they're going to be, if not the worst, one of the worst in the NFL. I obviously got rid of Matt Ryan. Feels like he's been there for absolutely ever. And I just don't have a lot of reasons for optimism with this team. I think they're very much in like a state of transition in the franchise. I think this is going to be their down year, evaluate, and then start to build up from here. But I don't have high hopes at all for them this year.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be that good of a team either, but I do have them winning 5 games, barely getting the over. It's not something that I would bet on necessarily. But you look at that roster, not much talent, especially with Calvin Ridley suspended for the whole year.
Yeah.
Cordell Patterson last year was really his only good year as like an offensive player in the NFL. He's a 4-time All-Pro and 4-time Pro Bowler as a returner. But last year was the first year in his NFL career that he had over 300 rushing yards and 500 receiving yards, I believe. So a guy who's never been a consistent NFL player, and he's really their go-to piece with Kyle Pitts right now on that offense. They also lost Russell Gage to Tampa Bay. So this is a team really lacking offensive weapons, and they don't really have anyone besides A.J. Terrell on that defense to really strike fear into you. So I think they benefit, though, from playing in like a weaker division. I think the Bucs run away with that. I don't think the Saints are going to be that great. I think they hover around like the 500 mark, and then you get to play the Panthers. So in there, if you can like win those 3 home games against those teams and then maybe sneak out a win or 2 against your non-conference or your non-division schedule, that's how I got them to 5. But still a team that I'm not expecting much out of, but I was surprised that I actually had them getting the over there. So
yeah, and for Cordell Patterson, I've been a Cordell Patterson fan from a while ago just because how electric he is as a kick returner and everything. But I feel like they're kind of putting him into like almost a Deebo Samuel kind of role, and I just don't think he's like that type of talent or that's like the utilization for him. Like I think he was more of kind of let him be a Devin Hester kind of version where he's just a kick returner. That's just his special teams thing, and he's very good at it. But giving him the force-fed carries, I don't think he's that type of guy either, and I think that they're going to find that out this year.
Yeah, he's also 31 years old too, and if they're trying to make him like a full-time running back again, we see running backs on that side of 30 really declining, especially a guy with him who's not like some big in between the tackles, got that build. He's built for those speed and outside runs. So, I'm really interested to track his progress this year again. Next team we're going to is a team that people I think in the media are really high on right now. I think they're going to be solid, but I've heard some people float them around as a potential Super Bowl team. And that's the Minnesota Vikings. Their over-under comes in at 8.5. What are your thoughts there?
I think they get 8.5. I'll go over for that, but I would not go as far as like a Super Bowl contender. And they're a fine team. I think they're like solid, but like there's
Does
not
it circle back to the quarterback?
A little bit. It definitely plays a role. I've never been a Kirk Cousins guy, and he's honestly been far better than I ever would have expected him to be. But like Kirk Cousins is never going to be a guy that just goes out and wins you a game in my mind. And there's not enough like just around him for me to be. I love Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook's awesome, but staying healthy is always the question mark there. And if he can do that for a full season, that's one thing. But I don't see that, and I can't see them as like legit contenders. But at the same time, 9 games, I think they can do.
I'm pretty high on them. I think that they're a team that will make the playoffs and potentially compete for that division with Green Bay. I got them winning 12 games actually, but I think they're another team that kind of benefits from they get to play the Lions and the Bears twice each. So you could throw in 4 wins there. And they've always played, if you look since Cousins got there, they've always played Green Bay tough. Like they'll definitely get one of those games, whether it's, I remember a few years ago, they actually went to Lambeau and won. And then you throw with Devontae Adams being out of Green Bay, they kind of have an unproven receiving core now. I think that could be their division because you look at Justin Jefferson just continues to get better. Adam Thielen battled injuries over the second half of last year, but if it weren't for that, he was having a really good season again. Dalvin Cook always banged up, like you said, but Madison's a solid backup. And they have a tight end who I was really high on coming into last year, but he tore his meniscus, I believe, in the preseason or training camp, and that's Irv Smith out of Alabama. That's a guy I would definitely keep an eye out for. I think he could have a big year if he's able to stay healthy. Vikings are a team I'm high on, but rookie head coach to be decided. And like we said with Kirk Cousins, seems to shrink in the big moments. So that's definitely something to monitor with the quarterback once again. But I think the Vikings could be a fun team to watch this year.
Do you think Justin Jefferson is like the real deal, or do you think he takes a little bit of a step back this year?
I think he's the real deal. I was super high on him coming out of college. I remember making the rankings back in that draft. He was my number one guy. I had him over Judy and Lamb. I just thought his production in college was undeniable. And then people were really worried about like his 40 time or something. And I just said he just continued to produce against guys in the SEC, huge numbers. I know he was in that video game type offense. But he's just continued to get better and better in the NFL, and I think he's going to continue to do that this year. And working with Adam Thielen across from him, and like I said, I'm big on this Irv Smith guy, the tight end. You get those weapons to attract the defense as well. He's going to be able to still have some field days out there. So I'm excited to watch Justin Jefferson again.
Yeah, that's fair. I was one of those that was a little skeptical coming out of college, and my concern was that he was primarily a slot guy, that's pretty much was his role at LSU. I wasn't sure how he would translate running outside, doing like outside runs and being like an extra wide receiver, but he's obviously made me the whereas I do think there's going to be a small step back in his game, which some of that's just kind of bound to happen just based on like what amazing season that he had last year. But I don't know. I do like Justin Jefferson, but I don't necessarily think he's the elite superstar tier that I think he's talked himself into.
Yeah, we'll see. The thing with the NFL is, and when I've been doing these fantasy rankings, if you look at the receivers, there are just so many good receivers. Like,
oh yeah,
Devontae Smith, I thought had a really solid rookie year last year, and they're putting him as like the 40th fantasy receiver coming into the year. Like Adam Thielen, like I said, he was having a great year before he got hurt. He was down around like 35. Like there are so many good receivers in the NFL. If you're even in that like top 10 conversation, you're a freak. So,
oh yeah.
This last team probably has the worst wide receivers in the NFL, so a good transition there. This is our last team on the list. The Chicago Bears, they come in at over-under of 6.5. What's your number for them?
I think I'm going under there too. I'm excited for the Justin Fields experiment. I'm excited to just see what this guy's got. And I mean, he looked pretty impressive in the small flashes that we saw last year, but I don't know. I think that the Bears are still in the process of putting the pieces together. Like you said about the wide receivers, there's just not a lot there. I don't think the defense is complete enough to really be putting too many wins together. So I think they're going to be in the running for a pretty top draft pick next year. But yeah, I don't have them winning more than 6 games.
Yeah, I'm hammering the under. That's probably my favorite number on this entire list. I have them winning only 2 games. I think they're going to be the worst team in the NFL this year. You look at that offense, I just feel like there's no talent around Fields. Montgomery is pretty solid back, but I think they have the worst offensive line in the league. I think Jason Peters said that he's like still trying to come back and play for them. He's 40 years old now. They just have nothing up front there. I think Fields is just going to get killed, which I feel bad for. That's something that really derails your career. If you're just continuing getting hit, you're not able to build up your confidence. But if he is like a superstar talent, which he kind of was looked at coming out of the draft, maybe he's able to elevate the play of guys around him. I'm a big fan of Darnell Mooney at receiver, but outside of him, not much. They just traded for N'Keal Harry. Defense has some pieces. Roquan Smith, really good linebacker. Eddie Jackson, good safety, but traded away Khalil Mack. This is just a team that I think is bound for failure this year, and I'm not a Matt Eberflus fan at all. I thought he was one of the more overrated coordinators the past few years, and his name was always floated around as a potential head coach candidate. He got his chance, so we'll see how that works. But the Bears are probably the team I'm lowest on headed into this NFL season.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. I'm not going to fight you on that one whatsoever. But yeah, I do feel a little bad for Justin Fields. Like you said, I don't think he's in a position to succeed really at all. I think that it's so difficult to evaluate a quarterback, and I think putting him in this kind of just like figure it out situation is like the worst thing you can do for a guy's confidence. So I do feel bad for him, and he is a guy that I like just purely based on talent, but don't feel great about how this is going to shake out for him or the team.
Yeah, he got, I think, dealt the worst hand out of any of those 5 quarterbacks drafted in the first round last year. Fast forward into this year too, because obviously what happened in Jacksonville last year was a complete mess, but I think they made some upgrades and got a nice offensive coach in there for Lawrence. But watching all these second-year quarterbacks this year, especially Lance, now that he's most likely going to be the starter in San Fran, that's going to be one of the major storylines, I think, of this NFL year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It is going to be fun to watch these guys. Trey Lance, Obviously, the Garoppolo thing is not completely settled yet, and where he'll end up and what the trade works out to be or whatever. But it's gonna be fun to see Trey Lance get handed the keys, and that's a guy like in a significantly better position to just kind of run with and succeed because they've built up everything around him. The defense is obviously awesome. He's got the tools around him, so I think he's a guy that will be fun to watch and see what kind of leap that he can take as the true starter. But yeah, I think that's just about everything we got here. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll be getting back with you with more fantasy and everything football rankings coming back soon. So stay tuned as the season gets closer.